IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to All Things Policy. I am Sunila Dixit and today I have with me my colleague Shambhavi Naik, and we are going to be talking about developments on the COVID-19 vaccine front. So this is the third episode in the COVID-19 vaccine update series. Hi Shambhavi.
Hey Sunila, hello everybody.
Picking up from the last episode, we talked about Haryana's Health Minister Anil Vish volunteering himself to participate in the COVID-19 vaccine trial. But now in the news, we are seeing that he has contracted COVID-19. What do you think could be the reason behind him contracting the disease in spite of getting the vaccine?
Right. So I think in the last episode, we spoke about whether this was a good idea or not, and whether he should have participated in the trial, whether public celebrities and public figures should be part of such trials, and what kind of exposure does that lead to. And we spoke about the fact that having celebrities, having public figures take a vaccine can basically lead to confidence. But at the trial stage, you're just trying to create data on whether that vaccine is safe or not. And what has happened in the past 2 weeks, I think, has kind of pushed back the idea of having this trial go on in a private and in a private manner. So what has happened subsequent, obviously, we don't know whether he got the placebo arm or whether he got the actual COVID-19 vaccine from biotech. So that's something that we should not know technically because it is an ongoing trial. If this was any other person who had got a dose and had a fever or had some serious adverse event, we probably wouldn't have known. If it was any other person who would have got COVID-19, which is possible. So the idea behind the vaccine is not that everyone who gets the vaccine is not going to get COVID-19, right? So we have seen it also with the other vaccines, that people in the vaccine arm also get COVID-19. It is not as bad enough as those in the placebo arm. So there's a lot of nuance to analyzing COVID-19 vaccine trial data that is yet to be done. And just looking at this one case, one-off, is not a good idea on basically saying whether that vaccine works or not and coming to any sort of determination about the vaccine. So why he has got COVID-19, where he has got COVID-19 is something we will probably never know. If it's got placebo, then it doesn't matter. Even if he's got the vaccine, he's only got the first dose. So for him to build immunity, he would have had to get both doses and then let at least 10 days go by for immunity to build before saying that the vaccine has worked in this person or not. So there's a lot of data that we still have to figure out. But again, this has to be figured out in a trial form. It is not this one person has had this happen to him, which means that the vaccine has not worked. That is a problematic determination to make. And I think we have to have some sort of calibration of how the media is reporting this and how people are discussing this. So it really speaks nothing of the Bharat Biotech vaccine. We'll actually have to wait for the entire trial results to come out before we can make any statement on how effective this vaccine is. Also, if you remember that for most vaccines, even for the best vaccines that we currently have, efficacy is 94-95%. So no way is anyone saying that all vaccines, that any vaccine will build immunity in 100% of people that are getting that vaccine.
I guess there's no simple answer to this, right? Firstly, the most important question to ask is whether he actually received the vaccine or, as you said, the placebo arm. So I guess that's what...
I think it really doesn't matter because he's one person in a trial. And what we really have to see is at the end of the trial, from everyone who got either the placebo or the vaccine, how many people actually developed antibodies and if people developed COVID-19. So looking at one person in a trial is never going to be useful. And I think that's why it makes sense for public celebrities to take the vaccine once the vaccine has been approved, because then that one person can be made as a used to talk about building confidence in the vaccine, etc. But when they're part of the trial, there is undue focus on that one person. And that can actually then go on to misreading the entire trial.
Yeah, because I think communication here is really important, like what the government and the media is trying to communicate to the public, because even one bit of disinformation can lead to loss of confidence in vaccine, and we don't want that happening, particularly at this stage when we might actually get vaccines ready in the next few months.
Right. And I think the other thing also is that you don't want people who are analyzing their data to have any sort of bias in their mind. Now they know that this one person, the health ministry at some point of time came out and said that, oh, they have received only one dose of the vaccine. Again, I don't know whether they were basically saying that, like they're basically confirming that he got the vaccine and not the placebo. But even as someone who's analyzing that data, that you don't want to have that kind of bias, preconceived notion that I know of this one person who got the vaccine and it did not work for whatever reason, right? I mean, not even Anil Vish, for anybody. I mean, that's the whole point of doing a blinded trial. And yeah, I think that entire scenario could have been dealt with much better than it was dealt with.
Yeah, I totally agree. Moving forward, I read in the news that companies like Pfizer, Serum Institute of India, and Bharat Biotech, they have applied for emergency use authorization to CDSCO. And CDSCO also has formed a subject expert committee to actually go through these applications. So could you go into more details of what has actually happened here?
Right. So, to begin with, the idea of this emergency use authorization is a foreign idea. So, we know the FDA has laid down proper rules on who is eligible for emergency use authorization, when can it go through, what parameters you need to reach, and what data you need to demonstrate if you are going to apply for a EUA and get it. India in its clinical trials guidelines does not have a specific EUA procedure. So, from what we understand, there's some sort of accelerated procedure that is being created for these vaccines. The subject committee met on Wednesday, I think. So, to discuss the three applications, I don't know what's happening with the Pfizer one, but for both Serum and Bharat Biotech, they have been told to get more safety data from their clinical trials before coming back and asking for an approval. Obviously, both of them still have clinical trials ongoing. Pfizer obviously was one of the first companies to go into clinical trials, and they've published their data already. So they're a step ahead. The other two still have work to do. From what I understood of the AstraZeneca trial, from the person I spoke to who's part of the trial, data was expected in March. They might expedite it a bit, but I strongly doubt we will have anything cleared for commercialization anytime soon from those two vaccines.
Right. I also read that the subject expert committee cleared an application for phase 1 trial of a vaccine candidate which is created by some Pune-based company called Genova Biopharmaceuticals.
Okay, I think we need more of indigenous vaccines coming through, and make sure that they're trialed properly within India, that the data is available, and that any cases of adverse events are reported and are followed through.
Right. Speaking of Serum Institute of India, recently there was a case of serious adverse event. A participant from Chennai complained of severe headache, vomiting, and mental confusion after receiving the vaccine. And the way SII responded to that was kind of suspicious. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so from what we understand, what is available in the public domain, there was one person who had serious adverse events following their AstraZeneca vaccination. Now, serious adverse events are of two types. One is associated with the clinical trial that is being going on, and second is people might have serious adverse events that have nothing to do with the trial that is happening. Now, from my understanding, a lot of data on serious adverse events is from drug trials. And usually in drug trials, you're looking at ill patients. For vaccine trials, you're looking at healthy volunteers. So the chances of serious adverse events non-associated might be lesser, but we really don't know. There has to be an investigation that is done and reported by the trialing company to make sure that the adverse event had nothing to do with the actual vaccine being trialed. The company has to sponsor the investigation, and then the ethics committee has to report that they have to report to the ethics committee, and the ethics committee then has to report to higher authorities that there was an adverse event, and that this adverse event, based on data available, there is nothing to show that there is causality between the vaccine being trialed and the adverse event. Now, there is specific time limits to when all of this can occur. What we saw with the AstraZeneca trial, both in the UK and in Brazil, was that when adverse events occurred, they were notified, and both trials were paused for some period of time. The trials were paused also in India and the US when the adverse event was determined in the UK, and safety data had to be put forward, and only after the investigation ended were trials restarted. What we know of the case in India was that this pause did not happen. We don't know who all were notified of the adverse event. So there is a lot of gaps that need to be filled there. I think in public knowledge, the first thing that happened was when the participant sent a legal notice to SII saying, asking for compensation for medical treatment. And then obviously SII came back and put a defamation case against the said participant. What has happened subsequently is that the Drug General Controller of India, started their own investigation into what could have happened. And they also suggested that it is unlikely that this was an event that occurred because of the vaccine. And therefore, there's no causality there. But overall, it leaves a bad taste in one's mouth to have this kind of treatment dealt to a participant, especially when healthy people are coming forward to volunteer for a vaccine, for a cause that everyone's quite aware of how urgently we need that COVID-19 vaccine. And then to have a major pharma company kind of have a defamation suit against you, I mean, it goes against a lot of ethical practices that people might think of, and it definitely can disincentivize future healthy volunteers from participating in trials. So all in all, I think that episode was also not handled in the best way it could be.
Right. I think what I found surprising was that how Serum Institute of India tried emphasizing on how the serious adverse event was in no way associated with the vaccine itself. Because when you look at the definition of serious adverse event, it states that it need not be necessarily related to the drug or vaccine that is being tried. Right? So the best way they could respond was, I think, that they should have said that, okay, we will look into it. We will see what has actually happened to that candidate, instead of actually pushing for a defamation suit on the news.
So I think what happened there was that the trial site had already finished its investigation and basically told the patient that this has nothing to do with the vaccine. Part of the distrust also comes from the fact that we are asking the same company who is doing the trial to figure out if the adverse event had anything to do with what is being tried, right? There is a conflict of interest there. And especially with complicated biology, to determine causality is difficult.
Right.
So that was one problem. The other, obviously, the wife of the participant came out to say that we weren't notified, we weren't given details. They just kept on saying that it's nothing to do with the vaccine, but it is difficult to build that trust in. And only transparency in data can help build that.
Moving forward, there's an app that has been developed by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which is called COVID. And the app is supposed to notify the people when they will be called for vaccination, or how many vaccines are available, and all sort of information on COVID-19 vaccines will be available through that app. So do you want to tell us more about it?
Yes. So Rajesh Bhushan talked about this app, I think, a couple of days ago. The COVID app is not available yet. It's going to be available soon. What they're trying to do is fill in as many details on prioritized lists of people, on possible comorbidities that or databases that people might already have, surveyors or local authorities might already have, so that this data is already populated within the system. And then the idea is you can also register to get the vaccine via the app. And if you fit into the prioritized category, you'll be allocated a time and slot to go and get yourself vaccinated. The app will also create a QR code which you can show to basically demonstrate that you have got the vaccination. It will also have a repository of how many vaccine schedules were held, how many people are vaccinated, if people dropped out of vaccination, etc. So it's supposed to be this one record of how well we are at vaccinating people. It mainly focuses on logistics. Up till now, I have not read anything about post-market surveillance as part of this app, or that information being captured within this app. At this point of time, it looks like it will capture patient details, medical history, and when they got the vaccine, and proof that they have got the vaccine.
So hopefully, this will ease the logistical challenge that India will face.
Yeah, and I think it's going to also speak directly to EVEN, which is the vaccine intelligence network that India already has. That basically speaks on behalf of the cold chain storage that we have. So basically, that will determine how many doses we have. It will tell whether the temperatures are being met, etc. So that will maintain the supply side, and CoWIN will maintain the demand side, and hopefully they will interact to make sure that our supply and demand are matched up together.
Is this app for general public, or it's just for government authorities?
No, it's for general public. So they're going to release details on when this app is going to be available on Google Store and Play Store, etc. And as a citizen, you can actually go and register and say that I want to get a vaccine.
Because I was wondering what happens to those people who don't actually have cell phones or are not able to use that.
I think this app is probably going to be a method to determine vaccination in the initial phases, when till the time supply is going to be much lower than demand, because only then till then do we need prioritization and we need vaccine tracking to a certain limit. But once supply increases, I'm sure we will extend it to everybody anyways.
Going back to Pfizer vaccine, recently Britain's medicine regulator said that anyone with a history of anaphylaxis to a medicine or food should not get the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. What are the further details on this issue? Like, was there a serious adverse event that prompted Britain's medicine regulator to actually come up with this advisory?
Yeah, so the UK has a system known as the Yellow Card Scheme, through which it basically does post-market surveillance. It regulates who enters data into it, but the idea is that they want to capture any adverse events for any drugs or vaccines that are rolled out into the market as quickly as possible. So using that system, there were 2 adverse events that were reported. And because of the robustness of the system, it obviously also captures medical history. What the government was able to determine was that people with prior medical history of allergies seem to have some sort of reaction to the Pfizer vaccine. So now they have sent out other set of instructions that while the vaccine is being rolled out to prioritize groups, if you know that you have a history of allergies, you should not take this particular vaccine. I think this is very crucial. This is something that India also needs to build into its digital infrastructure that will capture the medical history data. This is going to be a very important element, post-market surveillance, so that we can identify if there are patterns of certain subgroups with either medical history, demography, etc., being susceptible to certain adverse events because of a certain vaccine. So not all vaccines are going to cause the same sort of adverse events. It is very likely that a particular COVID-19 vaccine might be better for a particular subgroup than it is for others. And we also need to build in that system to make sure that we are on the top of the ball when it comes to determining adverse events and its links to a particular vaccine.
Let's hope India actually, India in the future or in the near future, India actually has this robust data, a repository of health data, so that they can actually, coordinate all of these logistical challenges of following up or loss to attrition in the vaccination drives.
And I think if we do a good post-market surveillance mechanism for COVID-19, it's something that is going to help us with other drugs, other vaccines as well. So it is critical that we use this as a template and an opportunity to build in a robust post-market surveillance mechanism.
Yeah, I think with the launch of National Digital Health Mission, India should carry on with the momentum of it and actually work on developing these systems.
Yeah, but the National Digital Health Mission is going to require a lot more work in terms of privacy and portability of data, etc. The post-market surveillance might be easier to build and an immediate requirement for at least the initial phases of vaccine deployment.
Yeah. Thank you so much to our listeners for tuning into All Things Policy. With the beginning of vaccination in countries like UK, Russia, let's hope that India also starts with vaccination soon. And thank you so much, Shambhavi, for being here on All Things Policy.
Thanks, Sunila.
And to our listeners, if you have any questions regarding any of the topics that we discussed in this episode or about COVID-19 vaccine in general, please feel free to post your questions on any of Takshashila's social media handles. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Please consider signing up for Takshashila's courses. Applications are now open and you can apply at www.takshashila.org.in/courses. If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle at Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's been an absolutely incredible week on the network. We had so many great guests, so many great episodes. Advertising is dead. We had Faye D'Souza on. Varun took a break for 4 weeks, but what a bang he's back with. Siddharth Deshmukh celebrates the 100th episode of The Traveling Professor. It is an amazing show which I cannot say enough good things about. Please do listen to it. And a different Siddharth on the network, Siddharth Bhatia. He's just been absolutely guest after guest, right? This week, Zoya Akhtar talking about Gully Boy. I couldn't imagine a more interesting conversation. Ragini Kumar is on 2 different episodes this week. She is on Cyrus Says and she is on Edges and Sledges, both in anticipation of her new show, Zindagi Diaries. Do check out her appearance on both of those shows and her new show as well. Tanvi and Shlok of the Millennial Athlete had a phenomenal episode with Dinesh Karthik and Abhishek Nair. Absolutely riveting stuff, talking about mentorship in many different ways. Definitely do give that a listen. And finally, I have a request to all of you. We have our listener survey going out this week. Every year we send out a listener survey at the end of the year. We're doing it again this year. And we would really, really, really appreciate your help in letting us know a little bit more about yourself. Our advertisers are really keen to find out who is listening to us and more about them. Anything that you could do is kept anonymously, and we would really appreciate your help in this. And to sweeten the pot just a little bit, we'll be giving a randomly selected group of participants in the survey some IBM swag. Last year we gave out coffee mugs. What we're going to give out this year is still a surprise. So please do help us out. Would really, really appreciate that. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
What are some of the radical changes that are now shaping our workspace? With physical distancing and heightened safety protocols being the norm, will technology finally make its large-scale entry to the workspace? Will design as we know it change for the long term? Is it possible for the Indian commercial real estate space to adopt a 360-degree approach to sustainability? Join our hosts at the Future of Space podcast by RMZ as we deliberate with industry leaders, analysts, and bright young minds on the way forward for the workspace given the new COVID normal. Tune in to the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts